Hello and welcome to Tale Talk English. Today's story is inspiring, emotional, and full of hope, unexpected change, and personal growth. It will also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary through simple conversations and real-life situations. As you listen, try to imagine every scene, every expression, and every emotion. This is the story of a man who lost his job and discovered that one unexpected setback became the greatest opportunity of his life. I still remember the exact morning when my life began to change. At that time, I had no idea that one ordinary day would completely change my future. My name is Ethan, and back then my life was simple. Every weekday followed the same routine. I woke up at 7 o'clock, made a quick cup of coffee, got dressed, and hurried to work. I was an assistant manager at a small office in the city. The salary was not amazing, but it paid my rent and my bills. I wasn't rich, but I felt safe because everything was predictable. I believed that if I worked hard and stayed honest, life would always move in the right direction. I was wrong. That Monday morning, dark clouds covered the sky. The air felt cold and heavy, as if a storm was waiting to arrive. I reached the office 5 minutes late because traffic was worse than usual. As soon as I entered the building, I saw my manager, Mr. Harrison. He was standing near the entrance with a serious expression. He looked at me quietly before saying, "Ethan, please come to my office." My stomach tightened immediately. I followed him without saying a word, my mind filled with questions. Had I made a mistake? Had I forgotten an important task? When we entered his office, he closed the door behind us. He looked tired. Then he took a deep breath. "We've had to make some difficult decisions," he said. "Unfortunately, your position has been removed." For a few seconds, I didn't understand what he meant. "I'm sorry," he continued. "Today will be your last day." His words echoed inside my head. My last day. I stared at him without speaking. Everything around me suddenly felt quiet. "I don't understand," I finally whispered. "It isn't because of your work," he replied. "The company is reducing staff. This decision wasn't personal." But to me, it felt very personal. I had worked there for almost 5 years. I had arrived early, stayed late, and tried my best every single day. None of it mattered anymore. I nodded slowly, even though my heart felt heavy. I returned to my desk and quietly packed my things into a small cardboard box. Nobody knew what to say. Some coworkers gave me sad smiles. Others looked away because they felt uncomfortable. A few minutes later, I walked out of the building carrying the box that now held everything I had left from 5 years of work. Outside, the city looked exactly the same. Cars drove past, people hurried to their offices. Someone laughed while talking on the phone. Life continued for everyone else, only my world had stopped. I started walking without thinking about where I was going. Questions filled my mind. How would I pay my rent? What would I tell my parents? How long would it take to find another job? The more I thought, the more frightened I became. Hours passed before I realized I had reached a quiet park. The noise of the city faded behind the trees. A cool breeze moved through the leaves. Children laughed in the distance while birds sang above me. Everything looked peaceful. I found an empty bench and sat down. For the first time that day, I stopped moving. I simply looked at the ground. I felt like I had failed. After several minutes, I noticed someone sitting on the other end of the bench. He was an elderly man wearing an old brown jacket and a flat cap. His white hair showed beneath the hat, and he held a small notebook in his hands. He wasn't reading, he was simply watching the people in the park. After a long silence, he spoke. "Hard day?" he asked. His voice was calm. I looked at him with surprise. Is it that obvious? I asked. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Only to someone who has lived through many hard days. Something about his voice made me feel comfortable. Normally, I wouldn't speak to a stranger, but that afternoon felt different. I lost my job today, I admitted. The old man nodded slowly. And now you think everything is over. I looked at him. Isn't it? He closed his notebook. No, he answered. Sometimes losing something is the only way to find something better. I almost laughed. It doesn't feel that way. I know. You don't understand, I said quietly. I don't have much money. I don't know what I'm going to do next. The old man leaned back against the bench. What is your name? He asked. Ethan. I'm Bennett. We shook hands. His grip was firm, despite his age. Tell me, Ethan, said the old man, have you always wanted to do this job? I thought about the question. No one had ever asked me that before. I don't know, I admitted after a moment. That's an interesting answer. I never really thought about it. And why not? I was busy paying bills. Mr. Bennett smiled kindly. Many people spend years surviving instead of living. His words stayed with me. I looked down at my hands. I don't even know what I'm good at. He nodded. That means today is more important than you realize. I frowned. I don't understand. You've been given a chance. A chance, I repeated. It feels more like a disaster. He chuckled softly. Most opportunities arrive wearing the clothes of disaster. I stayed silent. He continued. When I was younger, I lost everything I owned. I looked at him with surprise. Everything? Everything. What happened? My business failed. Weren't you scared? Oh, I was terrified. What did you do? I kept walking. I frowned again. Walking? One step at a time. He pointed toward the path that crossed the park. If you stand still because you're afraid, nothing changes, but every small step creates another possibility. His words sounded simple, almost too simple. I still feel scared, I admitted. Good. I blinked. Good? Fear means you're standing somewhere new. I had never heard anyone describe fear like that. For years, I had believed fear was a sign to stop. Mr. Bennett believed it was a sign to continue. What if I fail? I asked quietly. He smiled. What if you don't? The question caught me completely by surprise. All day I had been asking myself negative questions. What if I can't find another job? What if I lose my apartment? What if everything gets worse? Not once had I asked myself the opposite. What if something better is waiting? The sun slowly moved lower in the sky. Golden light spread across the park. People began heading home. Mr. Bennett stood up and placed his notebook inside his jacket pocket. I should go, he said. I felt disappointed. I still have so many questions. He smiled. You don't need all the answers today. So what do I need? He looked at me for a moment before speaking. You only need the courage to take the next step. The next step? That's enough. He adjusted his cap. Life becomes clearer while you're moving, not while you're worrying. Then he started walking down the path. After a few steps, he turned around one last time. Remember this, Ethan. I waited. You don't have to see the whole road. He smiled warmly. You only have to see the next step. I watched him disappear between the trees. For a long time, I remained on that bench thinking about everything he had said. Nothing around me had changed. I still didn't have a job. I still didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But something inside me felt different. The fear was still there, yet it was no longer the only thing I felt. For the first time since leaving the office, I felt a tiny spark of hope. I stood up, picked up my box, and slowly began walking home. I didn't know it yet, but that simple walk would become the first step toward a completely different life. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mr. Harrison telling me that my position was gone. Then I heard Mr. Bennett's calm voice saying, "You only have to see the next step." The two conversations stayed in my mind like two different roads. One road led to fear, the other led to hope. Early the next morning, I woke up before my alarm. For a few seconds, everything felt normal. Then I remembered that I no longer had a job to go to. The apartment was unusually quiet. Normally, I would already be getting ready for work. Instead, I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee and looked out the window. People were walking to work with bags over their shoulders. Buses stopped to pick up passengers. Life was moving as always. Mine felt like it had paused. I picked up a notebook from the shelf and opened it to a blank page. For several minutes, I simply stared at it. Then I remembered something Mr. Bennett had asked me. "What are you good at?" At first, I couldn't answer. I had spent so many years doing the same job that I never stopped to think about my own abilities. Finally, I wrote a simple title, "Things I Can Do." The list started slowly. I can organize schedules. I can answer emails politely. I can solve simple problems. I can work with spreadsheets. I can stay calm when customers are upset. I can learn new software quickly. I can communicate clearly. As I kept writing, I noticed something surprising. The page was filling up. Maybe my skills weren't extraordinary, but they were useful. For the first time since losing my job, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what I still had. That small change made a big difference. Later that morning, I opened my laptop and searched for office jobs. Hundreds of advertisements appeared on the screen. Most of them looked exactly like my previous job, the same responsibilities, the same routine, the same long hours. I started filling out an application. Halfway through, I stopped typing. A strange feeling grew inside me. Did I really want another job just like the one I'd lost? The answer surprised me. Not really. I wanted something different. But different also meant uncertain, and uncertainty was frightening. I closed the application without sending it. Instead, I opened a blank document. An idea had started growing in my mind. Small businesses often needed help organizing emails, managing appointments, and answering customer questions. Those were things I already knew how to do. Maybe someone out there needed help. Maybe someone would give me a chance. My hands felt nervous as I began writing. I introduced myself and explained that I could help business owners stay organized and communicate with customers professionally. It wasn't a perfect advertisement. It was simple and honest. I read it several times before placing my finger over the mouse. My heart was beating faster. "What if nobody replies?" I whispered. Then another thought entered my mind. What if someone does? I smiled. That sounded exactly like Mr. Bennett. Before fear could stop me, I clicked the button. My message was online. There was no turning back now. The rest of the day moved painfully slowly. Every few minutes I checked my phone. Nothing. I refreshed the page again. Still nothing. Hours passed. The silence became heavier. By evening, I started believing I had made a mistake. Maybe nobody trusted someone without experience. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I had been foolish for trying. That night, disappointment returned. I almost deleted the post several times, but each time I stopped myself. If you stand still because you're afraid, nothing changes. I could almost hear Mr. Bennett saying those words. The next morning, I reached for my phone before even getting out of bed. There was one new notification. My heart raced. I opened it carefully. The message was short. "Hello, Ethan. My name is Olivia. I own a small online gift shop. I saw your post and wondered if you could help me manage customer emails. If you're interested, please let me know." I read the message 3 times.
Someone had actually contacted me. It wasn't a huge company, it wasn't a full-time job, but it was an opportunity. For a moment, fear returned. What if I disappointed her? What if I wasn't ready? Then I remembered another question. What if you don't? I smiled. This time I didn't hesitate. I replied politely. Hello, Olivia. Thank you for your message. I'd be happy to help. Please tell me more about what you need. Her answer arrived only a few minutes later. She explained that her business had grown quickly and she was struggling to answer every customer message on time. She needed someone organized, patient, and friendly. Those were exactly the skills I had written in my notebook. Later that afternoon, we had our first video call. I was nervous before it started. I adjusted my shirt 3 times. I checked my internet connection twice. When Olivia appeared on the screen, she smiled warmly. She looked friendly and relaxed. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said. "I'm glad to be here," I answered. She explained how her business worked and showed me the customer inbox. There were hundreds of unanswered messages. Some customers wanted information about products, others wanted updates about deliveries. A few had complaints that needed careful attention. It looked overwhelming. Then Olivia said something unexpected. "I don't expect perfection." I looked at her. "I just need someone who cares." Those simple words immediately reduced my anxiety. She wasn't searching for the perfect employee. She was searching for a reliable person. At the end of the meeting, she smiled. "Let's try working together for 1 week." 1 week. That was all. It wasn't a promise, it wasn't security, but it was enough. After the call ended, I sat quietly in my chair. A week earlier, I had walked out of my office believing everything was over. Now, someone was trusting me with a new beginning. The future was still uncertain, but uncertainty no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like an open door waiting for me to walk through. I took a deep breath, opened my notebook again, and wrote 1 new sentence beneath my list of skills. Today, I took my next step. The following Monday, I officially started working with Olivia. I was excited, but I was also nervous. This was different from every job I had ever had. There was no office, no manager sitting nearby, and no coworker I could ask for help. It was just me, my laptop, and a long list of customer messages waiting for answers. Before I began, I took a deep breath. "This is your chance," I whispered to myself. I opened the first message and read it carefully. A customer wanted to know when her order would arrive. I checked the information, wrote a polite reply, and read it twice before sending it. Then I answered another message, and another. Slowly, I found a rhythm. Still, the first few days were not easy. Sometimes I spent 10 minutes writing a single reply because I wanted every word to be perfect. Once I accidentally sent the wrong tracking number to a customer. As soon as I realized my mistake, my heart started beating faster. "I've ruined everything," I thought. I quickly sent another message with the correct information and apologized for the confusion. The customer replied kindly, "Thank you for letting me know." That was all. The world did not end. It was a small mistake, and I had fixed it. That moment taught me something important. Making a mistake did not mean I was a failure. It simply meant I was learning. Every day I became a little faster, a little more confident, a little less afraid. By the end of the week, answering customer messages felt much more natural. On Friday afternoon, a notification appeared on my screen. It was from Olivia. For a second, I became nervous again. Had I done something wrong? I opened the message. "Ethan, you've done an excellent job this week. Customers are receiving faster replies, and several people have even thanked us for the friendly service. I would love to continue working with you if you're interested." I couldn't stop smiling. Only a week earlier, I had believed my career was over. Now someone wanted to keep working with me. I replied immediately, I'd be happy to continue. Thank you for trusting me. After sending the message, I leaned back in my chair. For the first time in months, I felt proud of myself, not because everything was perfect, but because I had kept going. Over the next few months, things continued to improve. Olivia introduced me to another small business owner who needed help organizing appointments and replying to customers. Then another business owner contacted me. Soon I was helping 3 different companies. Each client taught me something new. One showed me better ways to organize tasks. Another taught me how to communicate more clearly. Every challenge became another lesson. There were still difficult days. Sometimes clients had urgent problems. Sometimes I worked longer than I expected. Sometimes I still doubted myself. But those moments no longer stopped me. Whenever fear appeared, I remembered the conversation in the park. What if you don't? Those 4 words had changed the way I thought about life. Instead of asking what could go wrong, I started asking what could go right. That simple change gave me the courage to keep moving forward. Months passed, my income slowly became more stable than it had been at my old office job. More importantly, I enjoyed my work. I could organize my own schedule, I had time to learn new skills. I even started taking online courses to improve my communication and business knowledge. Learning no longer felt like something I had to do. It became something I wanted to do. One quiet Saturday afternoon, I found myself walking through the same park where everything had begun. The trees looked just as beautiful as they had months before. Children were still laughing, birds still sang in the branches above. I walked toward the familiar bench. It was empty. I sat down and looked around, hoping to see Mr. Bennet, but he wasn't there. For a moment, I felt disappointed. I wanted to thank him. I wanted to tell him how much his words had changed my life. As I sat there, I smiled. Maybe he didn't need to hear my thanks. Maybe helping strangers was simply who he was. I looked at the path stretching through the park. People were walking in different directions. Some were alone, some were with friends. Everyone was moving towards something. I finally understood what Mr. Bennet had been trying to teach me. Life is not about knowing every answer. It is about having the courage to take the next step, even when you cannot see the entire journey. If I had never lost my job, I probably would still be sitting in the same office, following the same routine every day. I would never have discovered what I was capable of. Sometimes the event that feels like the biggest loss becomes the greatest opportunity. We simply cannot see it at the beginning. As the sun started to set, warm golden light filled the park. I stood up from the bench and looked at the path ahead of me. This time, I wasn't afraid of it. I knew there would be new challenges, there would be mistakes, there would be difficult days, but there would also be new opportunities, new experiences, and new reasons to keep growing. I smiled to myself. Losing my job had not been the end of my story. It had been the first page of a much better chapter. And if you are listening to my story today, I hope you remember one thing. You don't need to have every answer before you begin. You don't need to wait until you feel completely ready. No one ever feels completely ready. The important thing is to keep moving. One decision, one opportunity, one small step at a time. You never know where that step might lead. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English through simple and inspiring stories, don't forget to support the channel, Tale Talk English.
Subscribe for more easy English stories, listening practice, useful vocabulary, and real-life lessons. Keep learning, keep believing in yourself, and most importantly, keep taking the next step. See you in the next story.